Servus, Klasse 7. Guten Morgen, guten Tag. Today we are going to take a little bit of a look into verbs. So our learning intentions for today is to first of all recognize what a verb is. So if we look at a word in German or in English, we can recognize what a verb is. We're going to look at how to do a process called verb conjugation, or verb endings, put simply, and we're going to look at how to write sentences using the correct verb structure. So that's the correct verb endings and the correct sentence structure in German. So, what is a verb? Was ist ein Verb? A verb is a doing word. It is a word where an action takes place. So if we think about some actions that, or some action words, some verbs, some doing words that we've seen before in German in this topic, we looked at two particular ones in Year 7. We've looked at wohnen and kommen. So for example, ich wohne in Kilsyth and ich komme aus Australien. So to live and to come from. In term 2, we looked at the verb lernen, to learn. For example, ich lerne Deutsch, or ich lerne Deutsch am Mittwoch. That's why I learned German on Wednesday. And this term we've begun to look at the first verb of quite a lot of verbs that we're going to cover in this topic on sports and hobbies, which is spielen, to play. What I want you to do is actually to have a look at those words in English and in German. And you might recognize that they have something in common, all four of them, although they all have different meanings. Grammatically, their structure, they all have something very similar. Can you see what it is? If you can, hopefully you've recognized that all English verbs, when we look at them in the dictionary, they all start with to live, to come, to learn, to play. In German, we don't have this at the start, but what we do have is all of our verbs, when we look at them in the dictionary, they all end in en. Something's going to happen when we start to use them in a sentence. But what you can see so far, if we look at these verbs in a dictionary, in what we call their infinitive form, before they're being used in a sentence, they're all in en. Wohnen, kommen, lernen, spielen. So when we start to introduce some verbs later in this topic, tanzen, hören, machen, you're going to all recognize that they all end in en. When we start to use them in a sentence, they're going to change a little bit. We're going to apply verb endings to them, depending on who we're talking about. Sometimes we use these, we call the words, so when we're talking about I or you, he, she, it, and we call these words pronouns or personal pronouns. We've looked at them in German. Ich, du, er, sie, es, and wir. So I, you, he, she, it, and we. And depending on how we're using the verb, we're actually going to change the verb ending depending on which verb ending is being used. And we've talked a little bit about the process before. We've called it E Street 10 or E Street 1010, verb endings. And you can see here the verb endings for each one. So you can see that when we're talking about I, for example, ich spiele, you can see how the verb endings E. When we're going to talk about you, it's going to end in ST. With he, she, and it, it's actually all the same. They all end in T. And when we talk about we, our verb is going to end in EN. And you can see here that it is all E Street 1010. And if we have a look at those three types of endings, we've got the E, we've got the ST, sometimes we call this E Street, and then you can see the T and the EN. So when we start to learn this process, this is why we call it E Street 10, because when you start to learn this order, the order where it goes from I, you, he, she, it, we, down this process, if you can remember that order and you can remember the E, the ST, the T, the EN verb endings, if you hear me call E Street 10, you know what I'm talking about. So let's look at our first example. We know that wohnen means to live. So what we're going to do, just to remind you, I'm going to write this E Street 1010 across the top, so you see what I'm referring to. So E Street 10, and there are our verb endings. Can you see here what I've actually done with our wohnen to live? I've actually chopped off the en. So when we start to use these in a sentence, we take off the en, and we get left with the stem, the part of the verb without the en. And I've written that down here. You can see ich wohne, du wohn, er, sie, es wohnen, wir wohnen. And what we're going to do, we're going to put the verb ending, our E Street 10 verb endings, down the end. So for example, ich is going to become ich wohne. Du wohnst, that's our next letter, our next ending as part of our E Street 10 combination. We know that er, sie, es is all the same, he, she, it. We do that together as one block, so I'll keep that together as one. And wir wohnen, just like that. So ich wohne, du wohnst, er, sie, es wohnt, wir wohnen. So can you repeat after me? Ich wohne, du wohnst, er, sie, es wohnt, wir wohnen. So let's look at another verb and do exactly the same process. We take the verb lernen, we chop off the en, and we apply the verb endings. Ich lerne, du lernst, er lernt, sie lernt, es lernt, and wir lernen. So if I want to say I learn, ich lerne. If I want to say we learn, wir lernen. Or if I want to say he learns, er lernt, she learns, sie lernt, or it learns, es lernt. So we need to use the correct verb endings for the correct verbs and the correct pronouns. So what I would like you to do is actually press pause when I say go. And what you're going to do is actually write out this verb in a table in your exercise books. So what I would like you to do is record the spielen equals to play, then record the stem, so spiel, 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 without the en on the end. So you've chopped off the en as part of the stem. And I want you to write in the correct verb endings at the end of each pronoun. So what would the verb ending be for ich? What would the verb ending be for du? And so on. So press pause now. And then once you've done that in your book, you can re-click play and check your answers. So you've written it in your book. Let's actually go back and correct your ending. So in your book, hopefully, you have chopped off the en. Now that's as a reminder across the top of the page. Write E Street 1010 or E Street 10. And then ich spiele, du spielst, er, sie, es spielt, so er spielt, sie spielt, es spielt, and wir spielen. Did you get all that right? If you did, give yourself a score out of 6. So here we have 3 examples of some sentences in German. We've got I play soccer, he plays guitar on Wednesday, and we play basketball on the weekend. So when you're doing these activities, when you're translating these sentences into German, what I want you to think about is actually who's doing the action and circle that. So you can see in the first example, I play, the second example, he plays, and the third example, we play. So what I would like you to do is press pause on this video and then try and translate these 3 sentences into German. I play soccer, he plays guitar on Wednesday, and we play basketball on the weekend. And most importantly, remembering E Street 1010 for each of these sentences and the pronouns. So make sure you use the correct verb ending for I, the correct verb ending for he, and the correct verb ending for we. So click pause now and write these up in your books. Now, let's have a look at the answers. So remember that we had I, we had E, and we had we. Hopefully you wrote Ich spiele Fußball as part of your first example. In the second one, he is If we go to our E Street 1010, is the third one, so it's spielt. And of course, spielt Gitarre am Mittwoch. And the third one, it's we. So it's wir. And hopefully you chose the correct verb ending. Wir spielen. And it's basketball am Wochenende. So the important part here is to get the verb endings correct. So as part of this unit, this is not a new picture, you can see this on the second page of Toi Toi Toi, our textbook on the iPads, or of course you've seen this image on Moodle before. This is an image of a whole different people playing some different hobbies. So we've done things like ich spiele Rugby, ich spiele Hockey, ich spiele Tennis, ich spiele am Computer, ich spiele Netball, ich spiele Cricket, ich spiele Fußball, und ich spiele Golf und wir spielen Basketball. Have a look here how wir spielen, it ends in en, and some of the other ones of course ich spiele. But we've got some different hobbies here as well. I'm going to mark these in a different color, I'm going to mark these in blue. Some different activities here. So you can see for example, ich turne, which is I do gym. We can see ich gehe zum Fußballtraining, I go to football training. Ich reite, I ride. Ich mache nichts Besonderes. I laze about, I don't do anything special. And this person here, ich höre Musik und ich singe. And ich tanze. So you can see these verbs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them there. And fahren. So what I'd like you to do is repeat these verbs after me. Gehen. Tanzen, reiten, turnen, machen, hören, singen, and one more that we're going to add on to this list as fahren. So in the end, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 verbs plus one verb that we've already done before as part of this unit, spielen. So I'll get you to repeat those verbs after me again. Gehen, tanzen, reiten, turnen, machen, hören, singen, and fahren. So this concludes our lesson today on verbs. So just in review, first of all today we learnt how to recognize a verb. So looking at that in English we put the word to at the front, so to play, to learn, to run, to dance, to sing. We learnt that when we're using these verbs in German, we chop off the en and we put on the correct verb ending depending on the pronoun. So for example, ich spiele, du spielst, sie es spielt, and wir spielen. So I'll say them for another verb. Ich mache, du machst, sie es macht, wir machen, using those correct verb endings. We began to learn to write some sentences using the correct verb endings, and you're going to do this in some work later. And we've introduced 8 new verbs to use in this unit based on sports and hobbies. So you can see here, and this work will be uploaded onto Moodle and on Compass as well, the work that you'll need to do to consolidate your information. So on Moodle, you need to download the handout verbs, and complete the answers to the questions in their book. This includes 2 activities. You're going to complete a verb table, so completing the correct verb endings for all of those new verbs that we introduced in this lesson, and you're going to write some sentences using those example verbs in your books. In German, so you're going to be handwriting this. When you finish that work, there's a Quizlet link available to you in that handout. It's on hobbies and pronouns and allows you to practice those verbs as well. I want you to actually do some different ones apart from match, so actually work on some different activities. Use the flashcards to try and learn these verbs. We're going to be having a spelling test or vocab test in the following week, so it's important that you learn those for now. So, all the best, viel Glück, toi toi toi, and I will see you next lesson. Auf Wiedersehen.